Neville Goddard said something that should have ended the self-help industry overnight. Man moves through states. He does not create them. Read that again. You do not build your circumstances. You walk into them, the way you walk into a room. And here's the part that stings. You have been standing in the same room for years, convinced it was the whole world. Think about the last time your life changed on the surface. New job, new city, new people around the table. And then, a few months in, that same familiar taste came back, the same tension in your chest, the same story, wearing a different face. You told yourself you were unlucky. You told yourself you needed to try harder. What if neither was true? By the end of this video, you will understand why your life keeps repeating even when everything around you changes. Not as a theory, as a mechanism you can feel operating inside you right now. Because Neville was not describing a mood, he was describing an ocean with no shore, and floating in it, infinite states of consciousness. Each one a sealed world with its own atmosphere, its own circumstances, its own way of ending. You did not invent them. They were already there before you arrived. All you ever do is enter one and look at your entire life from inside it. And the state you stand in colors everything. What you notice, what you expect, what you are able to receive. Change nothing about that state, and you can move to the other side of the earth and meet the same life waiting for you when you step off the plane. That is the trap we are going to open tonight. To understand states, you have to understand where Neville himself learned it, because he did not invent this in a vacuum. Neville Goddard was born in 1905 on the island of Barbados in the Caribbean, one of 10 children in a family of merchants. At 17, he sailed to the United States to study theater. For years, he was a dancer and an actor, a man of the stage, before he ever spoke a word about consciousness. Then, in New York City, he met the teacher who broke his understanding of reality wide open. Neville called him Abdullah. By Neville's own account, Abdullah was a black man, an Ethiopian Jew, a master of Hebrew and of the hidden meaning buried inside Scripture. Neville studied under him for years, and Abdullah taught him something the world was not ready to hear. He taught that you are never waiting for your life to arrive. You are only ever occupying a state, and the state decides everything that follows. There is a story Neville told for the rest of his life. He wanted desperately to spend a winter back in Barbados with his family. He had no money for the passage, none. So he went to Abdullah and explained the problem, expecting sympathy, expecting a plan. Abdullah refused to hear it. He said 4 words, "You are already in Barbados," and he sent Neville away. We will come back to that room because what happened next is the whole teaching in miniature. For now, hold on to the phrase because it is stranger than it sounds. You are already in Barbados. Not you will be, not once you save enough. You already are. Abdullah was pointing at a state and daring Neville to move into it before a single fact had changed. Here is the mistake almost everyone makes, and you have probably made it 100 times without noticing. You believe your circumstances create your feeling. The bills arrive, so you feel the fear. The relationship fails, so you feel unworthy. The world acts first, and you react. That is common sense. That is also exactly backwards. Neville taught that you are what you are conscious of being, not what you own, not what happened to you, what you are conscious of being. The feeling comes first, and the world arranges itself to match. So when you change the scenery and your life still repeats, it is not a mystery. The script was never written into the scenery. It was written into the state you carried through the door with you. Imagine a man who is convinced deep down that he is the kind of person who always gets overlooked. Give him a new company, a new team, a manager who has never met him. Within a season, somehow he is overlooked again. Not because the universe is cruel, because he is looking out from inside the state of the overlooked man. He notices every slight. He misses every opening. He carries the whole room with him and sets it up again in a new building. This is why raw willpower fails so often. You are rowing harder and harder inside a locked room and calling the exhaustion progress. If this is starting to land, do something small to mark it. Type this in the comments. I am not my states. We will get to what that really means. For now, keep going. Now we go deeper into the strangest claim in all of Neville's work. The states are not created by you. They are not created by anyone. They already exist, complete, eternal, waiting. Neville laid this out in his 1952 book, The Power of Awareness. Man, he wrote, moves through states. He does not create them. Picture an ocean without edges. That ocean is consciousness itself, and drifting through it, countless, infinite, every possible way a human being could ever feel or be or live. The state of the beloved, the state of the failure, the state of the person for whom doors simply open, the state of the one who is always a step behind. None of them belong to you. They are like rooms in a house so vast it has no outer wall. You do not build the room, you enter it, and the moment you enter, its whole world becomes your world. Its weather becomes your weather. This is why Neville sounds almost cold when you first hear him. He was not offering you a technique to build a more comfortable cage. He was telling you the cage was never real. You were only ever a visitor who forgot he could leave. Sit with the size of that. Every life you have ever envied is not somewhere else. It is a state, and states have no address. They are not across the ocean. They are in the ocean you are already floating in. The only question is which one you are standing in tonight. If states are rooms, then at some point you walked into the one you live in now. So how did it happen? Because if you can see the entrance, you can find the exit. You entered the same way everyone does, through attention repeated until it hardened into identity. A feeling visited you once, maybe as a child, maybe last year. Not enough, too much, unsafe, behind. And you did what humans do. You agreed with it. You gave it your attention. You returned to it, and each return dug the groove a little deeper. Neville had a plain phrase for the thing that keeps a state alive. Inner talking, the endless, quiet conversation running underneath your day, the remarks you make to yourself about yourself. He taught that your inner talking is forever writing your outer world, sentence by sentence, and most people never once read what they are dictating. Listen to yourself for a single hour and you will hear the walls of your room. Of course this would happen to me. I always do this. People like me do not get that. Every line is a brick. And you laid them yourself without ever knowing you were building. That sounds like a sentence, but turn it over because it is actually the escape. If attention built the room, attention can walk you out of it. You are not trapped by fate. You are held in place by a habit of consciousness no one ever taught you to notice, and a habit, unlike a fate, can be broken. Here is the cruelest feature of a state, and the reason people stay inside one for a lifetime. From the inside, a state does not feel like a room. It feels like reality itself, like plain truth, like the way things simply are. A man who has lived 30 years inside the state of scarcity does not think, I am occupying a state of scarcity. He thinks, money is hard, life is a fight, and anyone who says otherwise is selling something. The state does not announce itself. It disguises itself as the world. This is the difference between the doctrine of states and cheap positive thinking. Neville was not asking you to paint a smile on the wall of your cell. He was telling you the wall is a state, and the state is not the truth. It is only the room you happen to be standing in.
and notice what the state does to time. Inside scarcity, the past becomes a record of lack, and the future becomes more of the same. The state reaches backward and forward and stains your whole life one color. That is why it feels so total, so permanent, so much like a verdict handed down. But a verdict is exactly what it is not. Remember Neville in that room with Abdullah, penniless, certain his situation was a hard fact. You are already in Barbados. Abdullah was not denying the empty pockets. He was refusing to call them the world. He was pointing past the wall, to the ocean, and to the other rooms Neville had forgotten he was free to enter.
Now the warning, because there is one, and no honest teacher skips it. The moment you try to leave a state, something pulls back, hard, and you need to know that in advance, or the pull will convince you that you failed. You decide to move into a new state, the state of the person who was provided for, the person who was loved, and for a day it holds. Then the old room comes for you. The bill arrives. The old voice returns, cold and reasonable. Who do you think you are? Look at the facts. Nothing has changed. Go back to sleep. Neville understood this reaction with brutal precision. The world you can see, what he called the world of Caesar, the world of the senses and the hard facts, is only the outpicturing of the state you have been living in. So when you shift states, the visible world has not caught up yet. For a while, your senses will keep showing you the room you just walked out of. This is the exact point where almost everyone turns back. They feel the new state, they see the old evidence, and they conclude the new state was a lie. It is not a lie. It is early. You are standing in the doorway between two rooms, and the old one is still lit behind you. The discipline is simple to say and hard to live. You do not let the senses be the judge. You stay faithful to the state, not to the evidence. You keep standing in the new room until its own world catches up and begins to furnish itself around you. If this is resonating, take a second and subscribe. There is a lot more of this work here, and I would rather not lose you along the way.
There is a threshold, deeper than any technique, that everyone who truly changes has to cross. Neville spoke about it in almost religious language, and he was right to. To leave a state for good, some version of you has to die. Not your body, the self that was built inside the old room, the one who knew all his limits by heart, the one who kept 100 reasons ready for why the good thing could never be his. That self does not want to leave. It furnished the room. It knows every corner. Its fear feels exactly like wisdom. Neville pointed to the oldest image we have for this, the crucifixion, read not as history but as psychology. The old self is nailed to a cross, and the cross is the old state itself, and it does not go quietly. It calls the death a mistake. It calls the new state arrogance. It calls the whole attempt a delusion, right up until the moment it loses its grip. You will feel this as a kind of grief, a strange mourning for a smaller life you swear you never wanted. That grief is not a sign you are going the wrong way. It is the feeling of the old state releasing you. It is the doorway, felt from the inside. And on the far side of that death, the circumstances have not all changed yet. On the far side is a different you, standing in a different room, from whom the different circumstances will slowly, quietly begin to flow.
Now the turn. Everything so far has been the diagnosis. Here is the shift that changes how you hold your entire life. You are not your states. You never were. You are the one who moves through them. Say it slowly, because your whole identity has been built on the opposite belief. You have been saying, I am anxious, I am the one who fails, I am not the kind of person things work out for. And every one of those sentences quietly claims that the room is you, that you and the state are the same thing. You are not the room. You are the traveler.
The anxiety is a state you entered. The failure is a state you are standing in. The scarcity is a room, and rooms have doors on both sides. The instant you feel the difference between the you who moves and the state you are moving through, a crack of light opens in the wall. You cannot leave a room you are convinced is your own skin, but a room you are only visiting you can walk out of. This is what Abdullah was really doing to that young man from Barbados. He was not teaching a trick for cheap train fare. He was forcing Neville to feel for the first time that he was not the penniless man. He was the traveler who had wandered by mistake into the state of the penniless man, and who could, by a single act of consciousness, walk into another. You are already in Barbados, which means you were always free to choose the room.
So let us make this practical, because a door you cannot open is just a wall with a story attached to it. There is a state you would rather be living in. You already know which one. Do not describe its circumstances. Do not make a list of the things you would own or the people who would finally call. Go underneath all of that, to the feeling. Who are you on the inside when the thing is already done? What does the body feel like when the fear is simply gone? That feeling is the door. Here is how you walk through it. First, catch your inner talking. For one day, listen to the sentences you say about yourself and stop signing your name to the old ones. You do not have to argue with them. You just stop agreeing. Every dropped agreement loosens a brick. Second, in the quiet before sleep, in that drowsy state at the very edge of dreaming, occupy the new state as a scene that is already real, not wishing for it, living in the end of it. Feel it as the memory of something that has already happened, and let yourself fall asleep from inside it. Neville taught that the mind is most open to a new state in exactly that hour, right on the threshold of sleep. Third and hardest, when you wake and the old room is still standing around you, do not panic and do not renegotiate. Stay faithful to the state, not to the evidence. The senses report the old world because they are always a step behind. Keep standing in the new room. Let its world catch up to you.
Let us end where we began, back in that ocean with no shore. You are floating in it right now, not tomorrow, now. Infinite states drifting all around you, every possible life a human being could live, and not one of them more than a single act of consciousness away. And for years you stood in one room, rowing harder and harder, calling it the whole world. It was never the whole world. It was one room in a house with no walls. That is why your life kept repeating, not because you were weak or unlucky or missing some secret the fortunate people were born already knowing. You simply carried one state through every door and set it up again on the other side. The scenery changed. You did not. Now you know why. So the question that used to feel like a sentence can become a door instead. Why does my life not change? You know the answer now. It does not change because you have not changed rooms. And you can. Tonight, in the last drowsy minutes before sleep, you can stand somewhere new and refuse to leave. Neville Goddard spent his life trying to hand people this one key, and most walked away still gripping the handle of their old door. You do not have to be one of them. So here is the only question left, and I want you to actually answer it. Which state are you choosing to live in now? Tell me in the comments, and if you want to keep walking through this work with me, subscribe, and I will see you in the next room.